Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is made by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. I'm going to have to change this intro to the podcast of the Champions of Scotland, because that's what we are. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. There's the forums, we've got articles, match previews, reviews, all that kind of stuff. Frankie's got his social media. There's a history archive on the website, so get yourself over there. If you're watching live tonight, start again. If it's your first time watching tonight, we would encourage you to subscribe and share us on social media. We've got over 4,000 subscribers now, so we're doing great. Thanks to everyone who's subscribed so far. The podcast is live tonight, but it will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, all your usual places, guys. All the usual gumph that I say every week when I'm on this show. So now to bring in my guest for tonight, it's David Wren, sitting in for John. I believe he's had a wee switcheroo at the last minute.
Yes, and it's obviously you're out of practice at the old hosting lark, because that's a disaster. But yes,
it always is, David. It always is.
John and I had a bit of a gentleman's agreement yesterday. I've had a bit of a nightmare, and I'm working on Sunday, so I just couldn't have came on Sunday and gave it a proper go. I don't think so. I think I'll have one eye on the game and one eye on work, but well, we'll see about that. But I certainly saw last night's game, and I think there's going to be a lot to talk about tonight. I know Frankie's already mentioned that in social media, but this was supposed to be a show about the Old Firm game, but it's incredible to think that's going to sort of be the last thing we touch on tonight. Because there was so much fallout, and beyond the fact that we'll speak about the actual game, what went on afterwards, and then into today, I think will take up enough time on its own. So I suppose we better get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really poor ending, I suppose. The result in itself was disappointing, but I'm fairly, it's a wee bit gutting, but. You can't really criticise Rangers too much in terms of how they've done this year in Europe. So sore, but taking it. But the other stuff, obviously, the stuff with Glen Kamara, we'll come on to. But I thought, first of all, we would look at the football, David, rather than the stuff outside the football. So it was frustrating today. I thought when I saw the draw and I saw who Slavia Prague got, it was just like, I think Rangers have got a wee bit of history of that. It just. Missing out in huge ties by going out the round before, so to speak. And it felt like that the day, we could have had Arsenal, and that would have just been a brilliant tie. But I mean, over the two legs, we just fell short again, really. You know what I mean? I think we said on Wednesday night's preview show that, they'd showed us their hand, and there was nothing new coming for them, so to speak. It was up to us, and I don't really think we could really say that many of us performed. Many of the players performed on the night. A really poor performance, and you couldn't complain really about the result.
No, I think it was quite apparent early doors that we weren't quite at it, which was disappointing. And and that's happened this season generally. We've picked up, but I felt like it was difficult in the first half because I felt like Arfield especially, and I hate to single him out because he's been such a good player for us this season, but to me just doesn't look sharp, doesn't look fit, and I think last night it showed, and I think it reminded me of the we bet the Standard Liège game, when we were absolutely battered in the first 20 minutes or so, and they score, and then you're trying to sort of get back in the game and sort yourself out. And I just felt like we didn't really do that last night. They were good. I thought they were a really good side over the two legs. I thought, well organised. Last night just did a job on us. And yeah, as you say, there was just, Morella's just couldn't really get going in the game. He wasn't holding the ball up very well. He wasn't doing all the things that we're used to him, doing well. And that was disappointing. But listen, as you said, it's been a fantastic run in Europe, and yeah, it's disappointing because there was quite a lot of romantic aspects to that Arsenal tie. I think the fact that it had been a Battle of Britain, but also I think the Arteta aspect would have been good as well, and there was a few different bits and bobs in that, so it would have been lovely to play them. But yeah, it just never really got going last night. I never really felt like the European ties this season. I've always felt up for it, and I've felt like, the longer the game goes on, the more you get into it. But last night was just nothing was happening. Apart from that Morelos chance where he sort of hit one from the edge of the box, you can't really think of many other times when we actually looked like we were going to threaten. And there was no times where you were kind of out your seat, excited about what we were doing. Aribo, didn't really get into the game, which isn't like him. Kent, I mean, I know we'll probably come on to this, but the way he was getting treated in the first half was just appalling. I thought the referee was really, really poor last night, actually. And, it was that sort of thing that just ruins football. And, they were a savvy team. I think they knew what they were doing. But, every time Kent's getting the ball, and he was just getting cut down. So that was disappointing. But, yeah, it just never really happened. And you know what? I wasn't overly depressed after the game, and I think that was interesting because, like, normally, and certainly, I think actually the context of the season, I think if we were going to Parkhead on Sunday, needing to win the league, and that had happened last night, I'd have been a mega downer. But I think when you look at it, I actually spoke to John last night, John McCallum, after the game, and he was sort of saying, really, really gutting. But the thing is, we're champions of Scotland. We're going to be in the Champions League, at least the qualifiers next season, with a chance at the group stages. This time last year, when we lost 3-1 at Ibrox to Bayer Leverkusen, we were 13 points, I think, behind Celtic in the league. We were heading out, at that stage, and we were also facing up to, a global pandemic, at the very early stages. You fast forward a year, we've won the league, won the 55th title. That was our first defeat in Europe all season, and we look hopefully to be coming out this pandemic. So, in the context of Rangers and in life, it's a bit less depressing than it was this time last year. Really, really disappointed to go out. I think we had a right good chance last night, and I think for a lot of fans, and certainly my mates and myself, it felt like an opportunity missed. But listen, it's been a great ride this season in Europe, and I think Gerrard again has shown his fantastic management and these big ties. But last night just fell short, and you know what? It can happen. We've not had many of them this season, those sort of performances, those sort of results. And I think sometimes you can get away with playing badly. But I think when you play against a team like that, that's so well organised, so sort of savvy off the ball, and can hurt you in their own attack, and you're always going to be struggling if you can't get up for it in the first 60 minutes. We were only going to get away with what we got away with the week before. So, yeah, it's really disappointing. I think when we saw Slavia Prague coming out, the draw last, a few weeks ago, we thought we had the right chance. And, yeah, it's a bitter pill to swallow. But, listen, we're going to be getting our hands on the league title in a few weeks, and I think that'll more than make up for it. Yeah,
it's frustrating. It kind of felt to me, maybe other supporters out there of a certain vintage, around about my age, or maybe feel the same. But it felt like the Stoy Bucharest game. It felt similar to that they weren't a better team, but they were a cuter team. They were a wee bit more streetwise and a bit cleverer. And I come back to it. Just too many of our big players didn't turn up last night, I don't think. I mean, nothing coming for Barisic really in the wide areas. I think Nathan Patterson, it's a good experience for the boy, but I think he's had a couple of difficult legs as well. A couple of difficult games. I think what you were saying as well about Arfield, I think he struggled. Aribo just couldn't get into the game. Kent couldn't get into the game. He was getting kicked out of it, mind you, but no complaints. I hate to do this because I praised him so much on Wednesday night. I actually think McGregor could have done better with both the goals as well. You know what I mean? I think the first one, he's got a hand to it. It's maybe just not strong enough. Maybe Frankie in the background will disagree, being of the goalkeepers union. And I think his positioning for the free kick is slightly off. When you see how close he is to it, I think if he's a foot back and maybe a foot further to the right, he gets a hand to that. So. But sorry to butt in, but the free kick, I found Daryl Curry was getting at that after the game last night. And I thought actually, he had a point. He was trying to get a wee bit out of David Wren and Alan Hutton. I don't know if it was the fact that they're obviously mates with McGregor. They weren't wanting to go too deep, but
I actually think there was quite a lot of different factors in the way that goal came about, because Balogun had just gone off, and ordinarily you would have 11 men in the pitch and you would know who was going to be in the wall, you would know who was marking the middle of the box. But when you get 9 men, it's really difficult to then switch and understand who's doing what. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses, but there was certainly a feeling that when they lined up to take that free kick, we only had 2 men in the wall at the start of that process. And then I think another guy went in, but there was obviously a bit of panic among the players, quite rightly, because, who expects to go down to 9 men? So that's what I would say about the McGregor thing. I would probably have to watch it again and again to really see the positional, but obviously getting beat from that range, there's always going to be questions, I think. But it was just a shit night at the office for us, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. But it's it's one of those, and I don't want to be too despondent, because I think, I'm saying that a lot of our players, our big players, didn't turn up, but they've done so much for us this season. They've performed so well, over and above, really, that you can't really criticise them. I always felt this tie was a 50-50, toss of a coin, and that's the way it turned out. Onto the sending offs, David. Now, in my opinion, with Balogun, I actually think he could have been off earlier. I thought he had a bit of a bad night. He persistently fouling and daffy fouls here and there, and he done one in the second half. And I said to my son there and then, I was like, he's getting sent off tonight. You just had that feeling he was just being reckless in pretty much most of his tackling. So, I've got no complaints with that one. The one I do I want to question is the roof one. And that's the one that everybody's saying, it's an absolute shocker. It's a straight red. There's no doubt about it. I'm maybe looking at it from, thinking of it from a player's perspective. If you've got your eye on the ball, it's coming over you, and then you don't take your eye off the ball, your focus is totally on the ball, and you don't know that guy's there. I'm always going down the road that intent is 9/10 of the law in these things. It's a contact sport. Sometimes accidents happen, and that's it. And that's what I view that as. There was somebody on Sky Sports, on Talk Sport this morning, saying that he followed through. He made contact and then he followed through. It's a straight red. He should be getting a 10-game ban and all this. That's nonsense. It reminded me of the one, I think it was Mane against Manchester City 2 or 3 seasons ago. It was similar. And I'm honestly of the opinion of, what else do you expect Roof to do? He wants to try and get to the ball first. He's following the ball. He's following the flight of the pass. But what else do you expect him to do? Folk will say it's dangerous play, and I would actually maybe question that as well, because it comes back to the intent. I don't think he intends to hurt him. He doesn't know he's there. He just puts his foot up to go for the ball and catches the guy. So that's the one. Under the current rules, then you would have to say it's a sending off. What I'm questioning is are the rules correct? Because I don't think he does anything wrong. He goes for a ball fairly. He never takes his eye off the flight of the pass. He catches the guy. Don't get me wrong. It's a dull-in, but a straight red, I don't know.
I can't say I didn't think it was a red at the time, and I can't say I didn't think it was a red after I saw it again. For me, I don't know. I just felt, when he did it and it happened, you saw the goalie go down, and you actually saw the aftermath, which, I appreciate what you're saying, but it was gruesome. It was really horrible, and I felt for the goalie, and he looked sparkled. And I think from a refereeing standpoint, so the referee on the pitch sees that and sees the boot into the face from that height. And I appreciate, I don't think there was any intent, but I think it was really, really poor judgment from Roof. I think, you've got to expect, if it's not a goalkeeper, you've got to have enough awareness to think, right, well, if I put my foot away up there in the box, there's a good chance I might catch someone. I think there's a wee bit of that. I agree with you on the fact I don't think there was any intent, none at all. I don't think he followed through, nothing like that. But I think the way it looks for a referee who's seen it once and making a decision is, I think he maybe could have given a yellow just based on that, but I don't necessarily think that would have been right. And you've got to appreciate the referee only sees it once, so he's given the red card, which he felt from his angle it was. And then I think from the VAR standpoint, if they're seeing it again and again, then it only looks worse. And I think if they were then to be seen watching it again and then saying no, it wasn't, when everyone can see it's a boot right to the face. So there's a few different bits and bobs that I think it was a red personally, just because of the force that went, the kind of went into the boot in the face. And as I say, I think it was momentum, but I don't know why his foot was up there. I don't know why he didn't go his head, because if he'd gone his head and knocked it past the goalie, there's every chance he would have won a penalty. So it's a difficult one. I just don't know why he felt the need to put his, to try and bring the ball down like that. And then obviously the goalie's taking the sore one and the referee's deemed that a red card. But the more I'm talking about it now, the more I'm starting to sort of see your point of view. It's a funny one, because you're sort of thinking about it, and I'm thinking about what I thought as soon as it happened last night. I thought that's a red card, no chance he's getting away with that. But it is difficult, because if the rule is, as you're saying, then. But I mean, it's difficult really to defend. I think when you see the mess the goalie's face was in. It's a funny one.
I get that. It is a bad one, but I would argue that it's a contact sport and these things happen. I think under the current rules, yeah, it's a red card. I think a few years ago it wouldn't have been. I think it would have just been deemed as, he's went for the ball and he's caught him. And I'm kind of looking at it from a sort of a player's perspective. I think he's entitled to go for it. I do. I genuinely think he's entitled to go for that ball. And
but
I think most strikers would have done the same.
Do you not think there's an element of it being poor decision making, in the sense of trying to bring it down his foot? Should he not going for it with his head? Or do you think that's a natural way to bring the ball down in a, well, not a natural way, but a sensible way, a sort of the best way to bring that ball down? I don't know.
I'm not sure he could have got his head to it, because the way the ball bounced, I think it bounces in front of him. But I mean, it's just, I suppose it's just the evolution of the game, really. You know what I mean? These kind of things that are being challenged. But I felt for Ruth, because I always feel bookings and red cards, and I don't think they do this at all now. You get booked for taking your jersey off and you're celebrating and stupid things like that. I think I've always viewed these as principal tools to protect players, right? So if you're going in to hurt somebody, right, you're getting a yellow card or you're getting a red card. I don't think there's any intent for Ruth in that challenge. I think he's honestly going for the ball, and these things happen. In the current climate and the current rules, yeah, it's a red card. I just wonder if the current climate and the current rules are correct. You know what I mean? And that's just how I look at it.
I think there's elements of that where you could micromanage every single refereeing decision, because I think it's so difficult in the current game to actually get a clear answer on the rules. Do you not think? So you and I are debating this. We're not debating it, but we're sort of discussing the merits of the red card and whether it was. But it's quite difficult to tell what a Scottish referee or an English referee would have given, because you just don't know. You feel that the inconsistencies are so large across the board in refereeing that it's hard to tell what any given referee would have awarded there. I've got to be honest, I thought it was a red card. As you say, I think Balogun's, I think he's just got to screw the nut a wee bit. I'd have been tempted to bring Hollander on at half time, potentially, when he was in a booking. Because I felt like he was making a lot of rash decisions in the game last night.
He had a bad night. He definitely had a bad night.
And I like Balogun, to be fair, but I think it's difficult. And I wasn't surprised to see him come in, but perhaps Steven Gerrard will look back on that and think maybe that was the wrong decision, because Hollander was a man in form. And I don't think, if we could sit and debate that Roof red card all night, but he was sent off, and in my opinion, deservedly so, and yours not. But he was, so I think you've got to just move on. But I think ultimately, red cards or not, we would have struggled to score in that game last night, because every pass just felt half a yard short. Every player just felt about a yard out of position when they were, out of possession. So it was just a bad night. And I think, the 2 red cards just compounded that.
It makes it a wee bit more frustrating because I think Rangers were just starting to pick up a wee bit when Roof got sent off. They'd maybe went through the best sort of 5-10 minute period. They seem to have a bit of urgency, but it wasn't to be. And look, at the end of the day, we can't be too despondent in terms of Rangers in Europe this season. We've had, I think it's 13 Europa League ties this season, 1 defeat. You know what I mean? I think they've done us proud. It's just a wee bit frustrating because I think if we got past this round, then it's game on. But hey ho, it is what it is. David, we need to talk about the main talking point from last night, and it feels like something I don't want to talk about. You know what I mean? It feels like a flat enough show as it is. You know what I mean? Everybody's a bit despondent. So, but we need to talk about it. And I was wondering how to do this earlier on the day when I was working on the agenda, and I just kind of thought, well, probably the best way to go through it is in chronological order. So we'll start with the incident itself. With Glen Kamara and Andre Kudela. The minute anyone comes up to you and puts his hands over his mouth to cover up what he's saying, and then the person that's on the receiving end of that reacts, and the person next to him, Zungu, he reacted as well. When you get that sort of the severity of the reaction, you know something's been said. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Glen Kamara is telling the truth, that what was said, of a racist nature. If you're going to say something and you're confident that you're not stepping over the line, well, the first thing you don't do is this. You know what I mean? And the whole thing just looked a bit seedy, I thought. You know what I mean? And then when Connor Goldson came in, you can see his reaction. Once he's learned what's been said, he is absolutely furious. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way that the player involved can defend himself. You know what I mean? Because from the off, it looks dodgy.
The biggest, the biggest thing that was a sort of telltale sign for me was Goldson's reaction, because I didn't really pick up on the Kamara thing. But when you saw Goldson steaming in, and he's not a guy really that loses his cool very often. He's a very level-headed bloke, and I think you can see that by even his manner in the media. He's a very sort of laid-back chap, and when he lost the plot and was really going, after that boy, I think he knew something had happened. But yeah, as you say, I mean It's left there. I mean, I've sort of been thinking about it today. Obviously, I knew I was coming on tonight, and as the days wore on, I was thinking, maybe say that. There's a lot of things been going through my head about it, but I think it's really difficult because we're 2 white men, so it's difficult for us to understand. And I know we're probably going to come on to Connor Goldson's press conference today, but he said it himself. There's words that are used. And the words that were used, towards Kamal Roof on Instagram last night, words that we think, were allegedly or whatever used. Certainly there was something said to Kamara. And it's difficult for us as we've never encountered that. And Goldson said that himself, it's difficult for any white people to understand what these words mean to people. And it's quite difficult for us because we're trying to make sense of it, but really it must be just absolutely crushing. I think you could see that with Kamara's reaction initially, and then I don't know if you've seen the footage of him and Gerrard after the game opened in the touchline, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, this is a guy who, by all accounts, is a consummate professional, fantastic player, laid back. Again, another guy who looks like nothing would bother him. To be, if he, for something like that, it's really difficult. It is really difficult, and I think I've been, as I say, I've been sort of thinking about it all day and how we could discuss it and how we could explain it, and you just can't. I mean, this is just such an absolute horrific thing in society. Still, in 2021, 21st century, and it's not just in football. it's prevalent in football, and I think we've seen that quite a lot this year. And it's only March, but every week you're seeing players down in England being racially abused on social media, and these social media companies have got a lot to answer for, because it's too easy. It's too easy for these people to make up burner accounts, make up trolling accounts, and abuse people, for the colour of their skin or their sexuality or whatever else it is. And it's horrific. I think last night was just, it hit home for us, obviously, because it was a Rangers player. But I think it's up to us. It's up to us in society to stand up against this sort of stuff, because it's all well and good, you and I sitting here and saying, "Oh, it's absolutely terrible." But if you and I go off air tonight and then don't do anything about it tomorrow, if someone else is abused on social media or in person, because I think you and I have both, spoke off air. We won't go into the finer details, but I think, everyone's experienced some level of that. And I think that the important thing is that people need to start standing up to discrimination in any form, because until that happens and until it's called out, it won't get any better. I think, I feel for Glen Kamara greatly, and as I say, I'll never understand what that must feel like for him, because I just can't imagine. But something's got to give with this. It can't just be the case that nothing happens. Investigation or no evidence, because the only evidence they should need is what Glen Kamara and actually Bongani Zungu, because I think he must have heard it, because you could see by his reaction.
Yeah,
that's all that matters. That should be all the evidence that's needed, because I think we're at such a tipping point with this, and across the world, and you're seeing it everywhere. Obviously, Black Lives Matter movement last year has really kicked it off, in terms of taking the knee and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to. I just don't know. It's really difficult. It's for people higher up in life than me to do something about it. But I think the more people like us that condemn it and speak out about it when we see it and when it happens in our vicinity, I think that's the most important thing. But I mean, thoughts go to Glen Kamara. It can't be, he's a young man who's just won the league title with, a massive football club. He's a fantastic young player. I think he's going to go potentially in the summer, but I think he certainly will move on at some stage to another big club for a lot of money. And for this to happen to him, I mean, just horrible stuff.
In terms of, I think we need to give like Steven Gerrard and the club some sort of, praise here. I thought the way Gerrard handled it last night was superb. I mean, when we were watching it, my son, straight away, my son was like, there's something racist that's obviously been said, because just how it all plays out, you know what I mean? The reaction to Glen Kamara, the reaction to Connor Goldson, the fact that, the two black players that play for Slavia don't defend their teammate. I don't know if you've seen that. They just stay away. And everything sort of pointed to, something racist has been said. So my son's like, do you think, Rangers will comment on it? And I think, I don't know, I think they'll maybe just say UEFA need to investigate this. Something out of order was said, because we had that incident earlier on in the season up at Dingwall. At that point, they didn't label what was said. They just said that something totally inappropriate had been said. And I kind of thought we would go down the same road this time. So when Gerrard came straight out in his interview, and said, no, he's been racially abused, and then to see him on the touchline, standing up to them, the Slavia manager, the interpreter, and club officials, and Gerrard, you can actually feel the rage coming out of him. He's obviously very angry. I thought the club statement today was fantastic. Slavia seem to be going for the ridiculous to the almost comical with how they're handling this. The 1 minute, no, nothing happened. The next minute, actually, we were attacked in the tunnel, and this happened and that happened, and we're going to get the police involved. And just before we came on here tonight, I think it was announced that they've filed a complaint with the police for criminality. The way they're handling it also suggests guilt. But I think the way Rangers have handled it, I think, got to commend them. And Steven Gerrard in particular, the way he's, stuck by his player is impressive. And I suppose, given the nature of it, it has to be like that. But I just think the way Gerrard's handled it, he deserves a bit of praise.
I think he's magnificent. I think he's a fantastic manager, actually a fantastic man. I think we've seen that, in the past 3 years. He's a great ambassador for the club, actually, and just like he was for Liverpool, an absolute legend of the game. And yeah, I mean, the management aspect's massive, because I think, I don't know if you watched, there's a fantastic documentary on the BBC a few months ago, Anton Ferdinand, speaking about his sort of
with John
experience. Fantastic. And it was quite interesting just seeing how isolated and alone he felt during that period. That was a real eye-opener, I thought. But, I think Glen Kamara has been surrounded by his teammates and his manager and the club as well. I thought, I agree. I mean, I know statements from clubs are often mocked in some way, but in terms of their sort of the drama that's sometimes attached to statements that are about very little, that was a statement that needed to be made about something extremely serious today. And I thought, yeah, they did really well with that. And you saw Goldson and his press conference, and the support that Kamara's obviously received from his teammates. Goldson, I mean, Tavernier's been a fantastic captain, but Goldson's not been a bad stand-in. I think he's, the leadership he showed on the pitch last night, and then to show the same leadership off it, I thought his comments were fantastic, but also quite sad. I found it quite, because you felt like he was really upset. Visibly, you could hear the voice was cracking a bit, but it was a bit depressing actually to hear him at the end say that nothing will change, and that's the most frightening part. That professional footballers and professional athletes in general can't feel like they're ever going to catch a break with this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that's why the authorities and the authorities across sport and government need to really work to try and eradicate it in some way, even if it's working with social media companies to get rid of that aspect, because it's getting out of control. But yeah, I mean, from everyone, from Stuart Robertson, it was great to see Douglas Parker and Ross Wilson on the pitch with Gerrard last night as well. Backing him
a real solidarity feel.
Yes, I mean, honestly, Colin, the transformation in the club over the past 3-4 years has just been incredible. I think we've now got a board who have the interests of the club at heart. You've got a manager who's been unbelievable, a group of players that stick together. It's been some transformation. I've touched on that in this podcast many times, and then Pick Gerrard's had, but I think last night was just another example. It was a good example and a serious example of a close-knit team, and one that's going to stick up for each other in the hardest of times, because not only had we just been pumped out of Europe, but then we had to deal with that after the game. And fair play to the players. I thought the club, players management board, it was a great response, and fair play to them for all sticking together.
I mean, on Connor Goldson, he made an interesting point today. I mean, I thought it was a difficult watch, his press conference, and he's also given an interview to Sky Sports. And again, I went for a quick walk before we came on the other night, and I was sort of giving it a wee watch when I was walking down the streets and stuff. And again, you find yourself feeling so sad for him, you know what I mean? Because he genuinely looked upset. But the point I want to pick up on, and it's something I've been thinking about raising on the pod for a while, and you're kind of scared to do it because of political correctness and all that. But the taking a knee thing, right? Now, if I was a professional football player and I was asked to take a knee, I would do it, and I would do it for two reasons. I view it as similar to sort of wearing a mask during this pandemic. One of the reasons I would do it is I would want to show everyone else that I'm a responsible member of society, and I understand that people within society, are feeling victimised and all that kind of thing, and I want to show that I've got some solidarity with them. Right? The other thing I would want to do it for is to show my teammates, that if I'm standing next to Glen Kamara, for example, or Joe Aribo, I would want them to know that, I was with them. But I think Connor Goldson has picked up on something. He did sort of say, take a knee for what? It is becoming, it feels very corporate to me now. It feels, every game on Sky, they always mention it. Yeah, we're against racism and all this kind of thing. But without the action to back that up, it does just become a sort of empty gesture, if you know what I mean. And that's how it's. I mean, when the clubs and the players first started doing it, I was like, that's fantastic. Now I look at it, I don't think anyone pays attention to it anymore, because what's changed? Nothing's changed. So this gesture has become just an empty gesture. And I found it interesting that Connor Golson picked up on that today.
Yeah, I would sort of agree. I think, at the start of the season, I think people picked up on it. But I think the longer you do something like that, as you say, it sort of loses its impact and its meaning. I think ultimately the authorities are going to have to work out better ways of combating this. And I think it's got to start at the top with FIFA, UEFA, the governing bodies, and then at a lesser level, the domestic bodies, the SPFL, SFA, and then the clubs themselves. And it's got to be about education. It's got to be about making sure that people understand because for a generation, even for my generation, there'll be people, my age in the late 20s, early 30s that have got this sort of horrific, bio ingrained in them, and that's scary that that's still happening, because, we've seen, I don't want to go into politics, but we've seen a lot of that over the past 6 or 7 years across the globe. It's not just been here. And I think there's just still an element of racism in society, and it's scary to think that is the case, at this point. So, yeah, I think the authorities have got to do something about it. Whether that's educational ways, whether it's punishing offenders, more severely. I think in a sporting sense, if someone's caught, racially abusing an opponent or a teammate or a fan or whoever it may be, I think you've got to really give them the sort of bans that you would give players for doping or something like that. You would see like Rio Ferdinand. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was given a 9-month ban in the early noughties for missing a drug test.
Yeah.
So why can we not bring something like that? And if a player's caught, issuing any sort of racist, homophobic abuse, or anything that, any sort of abuse based on, anything really, why not dish out harsh bans that are going to send a message?
I mean, and sort of final point in this, David, it's, UEFA have announced tonight that, there is going to be an investigation with an ethics and disciplinary inspector looking at the incidents, and I'm assuming they'll take it forward. UEFA don't have a great track record on this at all. I mean, the sort of stuff that you're talking about there, I seem to remember Manchester City got fined more for sort of fouling the Champions League anthem. So, and other incidents of, racist abuse and all that, and with supporters or players, very, very lenient sort of, punishments and stuff like that. So Steven Gerrard sort of alluded to this last night. He was asked, what does he expect to happen? And he sort of says, well, what I want to happen and what will happen, I think there'll be a big gap between the two. And it kind of feels that's what's going to happen. Is that how it feels for you? UEFA are going to look at this, slap a wrist or two, and then sweep under the carpet? I
think they've got to treat it. I mean, there's every chance that will happen. But I think we're just going to have to wait and see. I think it's got to be treated responsibly, and I'm just seeing, Glen Kamara's issued a statement tonight while we're on air. So I'll read out some parts of it, but he's saying there's no place for racism or bigotry in football, since Summer Many was taking a knee in solidarity with those who have lost their lives to racial violence. If UEFA genuinely wants to show racism the red card, then it's time to stop the tokenism and take a zero tolerance approach. As a player, I do not expect myself nor any others to tolerate racial hatred on or off the pitch. In 2021, the vile racist abuse by Andre Cadell took place on the international stage, and any failure to act by UEFA will be viewed as a green light for racism. Cadell was arguing with Rangers player after I tried to intervene. He told me to shut up and then said, 1 second, my friend. He then came over to me, covering his mouth, leaning into me. He uttered the words, "You're a effing monkey, you are." I was shocked and horrified to hear such racist abuse from a professional footballer. Cadell's claim he simply swore at me is a complete and utter lie, which does not stand up to any form of scrutiny. So that's some of what he said. The full statement's been released through the lawyer Amaran War, but that's quite interesting. That's it's all there. It's all there out in the public domain.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a sort of suspicion as to the words were said, because if you watch one of the videos, you can hear Zungu shout what he said. He's sort of it's as if he's shouting to the bench. He said, and he uses that phrase. So I did have a rough idea of the words that were used, and yeah, I mean, UEFA should be throwing the book here, but they don't have a great record in this, and I have a funny feeling that we're going to come out of this feeling all a bit sort of dejected. Yeah,
it's just a horrible. I mean, even just saying that there, reading the statement he's released is just it's horrible, and I think for anyone to have to suffer that is just beggars belief. And as I say, it's difficult for you or I to try and comprehend what that must have felt like. But for me, even to read that and to see that, it feels horrible to have read it, and not good.
No, it is not. Right, before we move on to having a wee look at Sunday's game, I'll remind you all about the Rangers Picks game, Rangers Pick'em. So if you fancy the opportunity of winning a £1,000 prize pool, then log on to www.rangerspicks.com, complete a series of questions about the game on Sunday against Celtic to give yourself a chance of winning a share of £1,000. There's an extra prize this week, guys. There's 4 Rangers jerseys, the title jerseys, the special edition shirts. So if you enter, you'll have a chance of winning one of those. You must be over 18 to play. Terms and conditions apply. And please, as always, guys, remember to play responsibly. Right, David, so kind of move away from a horrible topic there. I have to say, this has probably been the hardest show I remember doing. It's been quite difficult. But try and get on to Sunday's game and more positive things. I mean, it's been confirmed that the game's on, although, as I said on Wednesday night, I always thought that was the case. I think there was a bit of bluffing going on that front. So the big game on Sunday, not quite as big as it would normally feel, David, because we've already won the league. It's all done and dusted. Can't remember that ever happening before. I mean, I've known of the final Old Firm game of the season not having any impact on the season, but to have only 2 Old Firm games in the bank and the titles wrapped up, that's new territory for me. So we're going to Celtic Park as champions. Interim manager John Kennedy announced today that Celtic would not be providing a guard of honour. Do any of us really give a fuck, David? Because
No,
I don't.
I don't get that full thing. Obviously I work in the media and I get it. I do get it, but that was a weird one. That was like just invented. It was quite funny watching John Kennedy, because I don't really care about John Kennedy, and I don't really mean that in a derogatory way or a trying to be funny or anything. It's just like John Kennedy's a sort of who cares? And it's been kind of funny because I found him. I don't know if he's getting fed like a narrative from the Celtic media team. It's before he goes into his press conferences. But I found that today just a bit odd. He was talking about how it's not a class. It's not about having class, because we've got the most. It's all that Trump shite. Yeah. We're the most class. We've got the most class. We're the classiest. And then he goes on about us not showing them respect a couple of, so you're like, well, you either don't care and you're not, this isn't about showing class or anything like that, or it is about you disrespecting us. Pick a side, but I don't care. Looking forward to the game though. As I said, I'm going to have to work something out. I'm tempted to maybe bring a telly into the office and have it all set up so I can at least have it on in here. But it's weird going into one of these games, and I mean, I would be extremely pissed off if we lost. But you're sort of going into it, and it's a bit like, yeah, well, good, rubbing your hands. Whereas when was the last time? I don't think I've ever gone into an Old Firm. Perhaps the perhaps the last one in the 2009-10 season when we were would won the league, and I think Kenny Miller scored and they beat us there. So that's the last time I remember going into a game and feeling, a bit relaxed about it. But I think I would still quite like us to put on a show. I spoke to Ross Bennett last night, and he believes that we're going to batter Celtic after that performance last night. So it'll be interesting to see if there is a reaction there. I'd like to see, I'd actually love to see, and I've been banging this drum for a while now, but I'd love to see Scott Wright play on Sunday. Just give him a chance, because I think I would just love to see him get a shot in a big game. And I think when you've got a free hit like this, really, which it is, obviously we want to keep the unbeaten run going and all that, but it'd be good to see him start the game, because I think he's shown a lot since even last night, he gets stuck in. There was, it was a difficult time to come on, but he gets stuck in. I liked seeing that. But that's one of those ones where that's through no real logic of my own. Wanting Scott Wright to play, it's one of the when you get a player you quite like, and you're like, I'd play him. So no, he probably won't play. I'm not really. I mean, it's not based on any tactical nous. It's just because I'd quite like to see him play. But no, it's good to go into. It's good to go into just a wee bit of your tails up and just sort of go in to enjoy the game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I suppose it comes with wrapping up the title so early, so we shouldn't complain, because we're champions and all that. But and I think last night's kind of knocked the stuffing, and I think the stuff that's come out of last night is kind of knocked the stuffing out a wee bit. So it doesn't feel like a typical, Friday night in terms of looking forward to a game against that shower out of the road. So yeah, I'm hoping things will sort of pick up. I'm hoping that, obviously the feeling that I'm getting for the Rangers dressing room at the moment is there's, a bit of emotion in there and not so much the positive stuff, a bit of hurt and all that kind of thing from going out and obviously the stuff with Glen Kamara. So I think there's a lot of emotion in that dressing room at the moment, and I'm hoping that we can turn that into a positive and come out on Sunday and really give us a performance, because I think we need it after last night. I think we need a wee sort of pep. Squad news, David, fairly positive, although Stephen Gerrard said today that Nathan Patterson is maybe a doubt. Obviously Ryan Jack's still out. On Ryan Jack, just a quick question: are we kind of approaching a difficult conversation when it comes to Ryan Jack? Because I think it's me and John always seem to have Ryan Jack to talk about when we're on the show, and we'd always kind of agreed, he's a sort of guy you get 6-7 games out of, and then he's out for 3, and then you get another 6-7 and he's out for 3. It seems it's going the other way. It seems you're getting 3-4 games out of him, then he's out for 6-7, and I just wonder if how much longer can this go on? If this is something that's in the player and can't be fixed, how much longer can we live with Ryan Jack? Because you need someone that's going to be in there more times than he's not.
You're missing your pal John, aren't you? You can tell by that question.
I'll see him on Sunday.
You're wishing he was here. No, I don't think so. No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think he's been a wee bit unlucky this season, but I think largely last season, I could be wrong, but I think he was relatively fit for large spells of last season. I think the early part of this season he was fit. I think he's just been a wee bit unlucky. He just picked up a couple of knocks. I think he'll go to the Euros this summer.
See, that's my worry. I mean, I'm sure I saw a figure the other day that since he signed for Rangers, he's missed 70 games through injury.
Is that right?
That's quite a lot.
Did he not get done, though, in the game against Kelly? Was that not the first injury he got in the 2017-18 season? I'm sure it was a really bad tackle on him against Kilmarnock. But it's difficult because, you can say the same about Arfield. This season, Arfield was fantastic, but then he was out for 2 months and now he's come back and he's just not, he doesn't look fit to me. He's not like fit, He played against, was it Antwerp away? I'm sure he played that game. He started that game. Did he? I think he did.
Aye.
And then he just didn't look fit.
He's not looked the same since he came back. I mean, when he came back to the team, I think it was against Dundee United early on in the season, he came in as a sub and he scored that day. And from then on in, he was sort of hitting levels way above what he's gave us before. And I like Scott Arfield. I think he's a great player, but it's probably the best he's played since he arrived at the club. But he's been nowhere near that since he's came back. There's no doubt about it.
It'll be interesting to see what team plays. I would really be really disappointed if Patterson wasn't fit, because I think he's grown into the jersey. I thought actually last night when we went down to 10 men, to see him busting forward and getting a shot on goal when what felt like only shots on goal in the second half, that showed a bit of maturity, a bit of leadership from him. And I think he's been fantastic. So I'd be really disappointed if he didn't play. And it would also, I'd be slightly concerned about Balogun right back against Celtic. Because I think they've got a couple of players that could potentially exploit that, but maybe not this season because they've not been very good, have they?
No.
So you don't know. You don't know what will happen. But I'd be disappointed not to see Patterson. Team wise, it's difficult. I think I would probably revert back to. I mean, if Kamara's in any, frame of mind to play, that's another big question. I would really love to see him play, but you just don't know if he's going to be in the right frame of mind.
I would love to see him play, and I would love to see him lead out the team as well. I'd love to see him get the armband for Sunday.
Yeah, but we shall see. It'll be interesting. I think we're a better team than them, so it's just about how we turn up to play. If we turn up and play like we played last night, it's anyone's guess. But if we turn up and play like we played against St Mirren, then we could be flying. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's quite an interesting game. I don't think, it's a hard one to call. Just to think, and it's all down to us. I think we get stung last night, and obviously, as you say, that what happened afterwards could either really flatten us on Sunday in terms of just the emotions being really raw still, or it could be the catalyst for a big performance. You just don't know. There's a lot of different facets to that, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good to watch it with a beer and just. Well, I won't be watching it. I'll be if my employees are watching.
I was about to say you've dropped yourself in it
there. But it'll be good to watch it, relax and enjoy it. Hopefully it's a 3 or 4 affair.
Hopefully, and on that, sort of final point for the night. We're undefeated in the league against Celtic since September 2019. 3 straight wins. And 2 of them were at Celtic Park. So, I mean, taking all the stuff that's going on out of the equation, if Rangers play the way we know they can play, you'd have to be confident going into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're a good side. I think if Kent turns up, if Hadji starts and Aribo starts, if they're all on their game as well as Morella's, we're really hard to stop, going forward. So I would expect to see Hollander come back in. I know Frankie had said they apparently the tight groin last night. But if he's back in fit, I'd expect to see him play. And yeah, we're a good team. If we turn up and show our full potential, I think we'll win. And listen, we're the champions, so we're going there with our tails up. And It still doesn't feel real, but we are the champions, and that's. I think it will finally sink in, as I said the other night when Tavernier and lifts that trophy. It'll be great to see Glen Kamara actually with that trophy now as well.
Yeah,
after what he went through last night.
And on that positive note, we'll try and leave in a positive place. We'll finish up for tonight. So a big thanks to David for his contribution, and it was quite a difficult show. I think that's probably the hardest show I've ever had to do in my sort of three years here at Gersnet. So thanks to David for that. Obviously, we'll have a show on Sunday covering the game, and hopefully we'll have a positive result to talk about. It's myself, John McCallum, my pal John McCallum's on Sunday. David, John McCallum, and Alec Anderson are on Sunday night. So join us, and we'll give you everything you need to know after the game on Sunday. In the meantime, get yourself over. I'm having an absolute nightmare, by the way. In the meantime, get yourself over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk. Guys, a really difficult night last night. I think we're all feeling a wee bit flat. So here's hoping for a good result on Sunday. And as always, stay safe, look after yourself, stay away from the ground on Sunday, by the way. Don't go anywhere near Celtic Park. And we'll see you Sunday. Bye for now.